Yeah.
And we're so glad to have Diamond Jenrette come joining us from Atlanta, Georgia today. I've got a room full here at Velma Jackson High School, and we got some questions we'll get to from them later. And we're also recording this for all of our STEM students in Madison County Schools, at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Old Town Middle School, Madison Middle School, and Germantown High School. So we really appreciate you taking some time to join us today. And We've looked at your social media and the things you have going on, and we've had your friends Anna Empire and Lily and Judy here in the last few weeks, and I know y'all are all outspoken about the involvement of women and minority women, especially in the STEM fields. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your educational background? I know you have a bachelor's in computer information systems, and you've come a long way with that, and now you have also your own business. So, why don't you take us from the beginning and tell us how you got into this and your educational background as it pertains to STEM and computer technology?
Right. Yes. So I was I guess you would call it a military brat growing up. So I moved a lot, um, almost every year, every other year. I would have to move. So I got into computers um, around the fifth grade, and I just was curious about everything about it, how it worked. Um, I wanted to be able to use every application on the system, and I even wanted to take it apart and kind of see, what these different parts look like, and how did they even work to make the system work the way that it did. Um, so my dad actually asked me to help him kind of build systems for other people. So that was kind of just my intro into computers. At the time, I really didn't think that there was an option to do this forever or like a career. I just thought, sorry, I'm in a, a conference room. Um, but I didn't think it was. I always thought it was just something really fun to do. And uh, Before that, I had never seen a computer outside of school, outside my classroom. So after, I'll say after moving to Miami, I was put into kind of, I guess you would say, advanced STEM classes. So I was put in advanced like math and science classes. And although I was very good at those, I was still very interested in computers. So I was interested in The Sims. So I would come straight home and play The Sims for hours. And and I would eventually got into building websites. And because back then I didn't really have a business, I was just building websites for whatever I wanted to. Um, and I did that for a few years. And once I got into college, actually, before I even get into that, when I was in high school, I took uh, architecture classes and design classes
Wow.
because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was very creative, and uh, I always thought I was going to be an architect. So I applied for one school, which is the worst idea ever.
I agree.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I applied for one school, and it was a private school in New York. It was very, very hard to get into. They had a low acceptance rate. And so I did not get in. Um, and I waited so late, I didn't have time to apply to any other school. So I basically wasted a semester going. Actually, my mom enrolled me into like a modeling school just to kind of pass time. And the next semester, I went to a community college, and I thought that I wanted to do interior design then. So I took some classes in interior design, and my dad was like, "Well, why don't you just do IT? You've always dealt with computers. You always loved design. Designing websites, things like that." So I just, I just didn't think it was a possibility to be, to be honest. I didn't think that was even an option for a career. So um, I looked up some ideas or some uh, paths to go to, majors and stuff to go to when I get to a university. And that's how I ended up at Virginia State University after about 2 semesters at community college. Um, so I ended up there, and I minored in web design, and I kind of stopped the minor because a lot of the time I was actually teaching my classmates, and I really wasn't learning much. I just wanted to learn more tech-wise. So believe it or not, after graduating college, I still did not know what a server was. And I
Wow.
I was working three part-time jobs, and I couldn't pay my rent. So I had to go and move with my parents in Wisconsin. And so this internship that I won in college, they actually offered me a role to contract with basically the city of Chesapeake in Virginia.
Yep.
And it was a systems admin role. And as a systems admin, you're kind of the last resort when it comes to fixing an issue. So I was pretty nervous, not knowing what a server was. And I pretty much drove from Wisconsin all the way to Chesapeake, Virginia, and just live with my friends,
Wow.
trying to learn this system. I had to crash, do like a crash session for a few months with my manager. And when I was actually placed on site, I had to kind of pretend like I knew what I was talking about. So that was also very hard. But eventually I caught on really quickly. I realized that it's really not that hard. It's mostly troubleshooting and trying to just solve problems within systems and things like that. Most of the hard work was the terminology, learning the terminology. There I had a lot of experience building systems and designing systems. So from then on, I just kept moving up and getting more experience in doing that. And on the side, I built a web design business. So now I can be creative and be in tech as well. So
That's awesome. Now, first of all, 3 things I took out of that. One, you have a similar story to every STEM speaker we've had throughout this entire school year about how, no, the college experience was important, but it really wasn't the main thing that got you into tech. 2, when it comes to computers, the software and the hardware skills are extremely important. And then 3, you talk about the terminology, especially in the IT world. The technology is always changing. So you got your degree however many years ago. How much does technology change every day for people that are in the technology field that they have to stay trained on this stuff?
Yeah, because I guess back then, I'm not sure about now. My school, although it was trying to get more up to date with technology, it's still very behind. So once I actually got into my field, I realized how old the technology and the like I was learning JavaScript and other times of things, other things in college that I really wouldn't even need because it was kind of outdated or was getting to be outdated. So hopefully schools are a little bit more up to date now with technologies and what we actually need. But a lot of the stuff I work on now, I had no idea about when I was in college at all. Not even, I mean, the most that I learned that I can probably say I kind of use now is learning about relational databases and how those things work.
Yeah, and then being a systems engineer, there's always going to be a demand for that in the country because these companies are depending more and more on on servers to, especially now with COVID, with all the remote business, they're depending on servers to do business. If we're talking about millions of dollars,
Yeah.
we're talking about online orders, we're talking about payroll, we're talking about conferences. So how important is it for these systems engineers to be graduating and getting into these careers?
I would say very important. Although it's a very critical role, um, there's just not many people that, especially people of color, especially women, that are even interested in doing something like that. I don't even think it's really it's even something on their radar. They don't have no idea what it even means to be a system engineer and all of that. So um, I definitely think there are plenty of roles that could still be filled, and it's needed in every single company. Once you get to a certain level, once the company gets to a certain level, they're going to need a systems engineer or systems admin um, to run their systems. It's not unavoidable, cloud or not. So,
Or even if a small company is still going to have to hire somebody on a part-time
right.
basis, so that, because there's more, you're seeing more and more across all industries, businesses that specialize in dealing with businesses.
Yeah.
So it's not
Mhm.
always the consumer businesses. They have a lot of the business to business, small businesses as well. And a lot of those are tech-based.
Yeah.
Now, also, I've asked every speaker this, and, with these kids, and I know a lot of the one, I think I can speak for the teachers that'll see this later is, these kids, they get real impatient. If they can't get it right the first time, they want to quit. Especially in a technical field, how important is that, is the trial and error and the problem solving skills? Because, it's not get it right the first time on every single task.
Yes. I would say uh, my job is probably 70% troubleshooting.
Wow.
And uh, just myself, just being an only child and being by myself a lot, I have a lot of patience. So I'll just keep trying until I get it. And it's almost like winning a gold medal once you figure out what the what the real reason is. Um, and the best thing about that is that you get to take that with you as experience to the next role. And you say, "Oh, I'm an expert. I've dealt with that. I understand, certain things that'll come with this dealing with this system or this program or something like that." But yeah, I would definitely say you have to be patient and understand that most of IT is troubleshooting, because a lot of times when a system is down, you have to do a series of checks and testing to see where it's even coming from. It could be a server, it could be network wise, it could be a security breach. You have no idea until you've done these testing
Yeah, and
checks.
all that's so important for these businesses just to stay up and running. And we had a speaker in the first semester who's local here, and he's with our Department of Revenue, and he was like, "I
Mhm.
don't know the first thing about finance, but I manage their server because the server has
Right.
to stay up and running." So you can work in an industry where you are not an expert in that industry, but you're an expert in the technical side, because that industry may not be an expert in the technical side. So the opportunities for this are growing and growing across the country and across the world. And it's a very portable job, because obviously you're not from Atlanta, but you're in Atlanta, which is a great place to live in a great city. We have kids say all the time,
Mhm.
"I want to live somewhere else. I want to live in a big city." And Atlanta's where it's at right now. I was there.
Yeah.
I'm a big Hawks fan, so I was there a few weeks ago. So there's a lot going on there, and a lot of careers,
Mhm.
for these technical jobs. Now, just a couple more before I get to these students' questions, and that is, one of them is about, you know, it's really impressive to hear you talk about the hardware and the software. Now, our students, they
Mhm.
want to get real comfortable. Oh, I just want to use the Apple products, Apple, iOS, and that's great for some stuff. But every program in the world isn't going to work. Every program in the world isn't going to run on the same software. So how important is it to get comfortable using these multiple programs and multiple software systems?
Yeah, I would say it's very important to know. I mean, it's great to know Mac and certain aspects, but as far as my side, like infrastructure side, it's very important to know Windows and Linux. It's you can either be a Windows engineer or a Linux engineer, or you can kind of know both. But either way, it's important to know one of those. And Mac is kind of like an added thing because there's not too many Mac servers that you would be dealing with, or Mac desktops or anything like that. That's more of like a something that I guess tech support or help desk would deal with more Mac wise. But it's definitely important to touch and learn about as many different technologies as possible, because you never know what you are going to end up having to touch. Systems are purchased every year by companies, and you have to be able to know how to build a server for that system, how to manage it, and how to update. There's just so many different things that you have to do. So I would say definitely learn as much as possible on anything.
Yeah, and that, even if you don't want to be an IT pro, I tell the kids all the time, I've had to learn probably 9 or 10 software programs in my life, and I've never been an IT professional. So being familiar with as many software programs as possible, that's what's going to make you an attractive candidate in any industry on time, and much less the IT industry. Now, obviously, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your company. I didn't know how to pronounce it, the Diamond Designs, because you do independent freelance work, and you've designed some pretty cool stuff. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my company is Diamond Design. And I started it in college, actually, when I was doing those 3 jobs, just trying to figure out how I can make more money, because I would always build websites for friends and things like that for free. And so just maybe over the last few years, I would say right before I got to Atlanta, I got really serious about it and wanted to actually, figure out contracts and all of that. So, but my company is like so you have sorry. So you have companies that come to me, mostly new businesses. So they are just starting out and they need a logo, they need branding, and they also need a website. And nowadays, they also need social media presence and all of that. So all of this stuff needs to be designed. And um, I would say I'm kind of a design snob, so I'd rather do it all
Yeah.
and have control over the entire brand instead of just doing one thing and then handing it off to another designer to do. So that's why I came up with the full service thing. So um, yeah, that's the gist of what I really do.
Your sound went really low. We're having trouble hearing you.
Oh, sorry about that. Hear me now?
Oh yeah, great, thanks. And now, and then before I get to the students' questions, obviously we need to talk about your online persona, the Black Girl in Tech. And I know that you've been on other channels and other sites, really promoting the women in STEM. You've been outspoken about it on your social media as well as on other contributors' videos. So why is that a cause that's become so important to you and some of the other guests that we previously mentioned? Throughout the country, and they're actually throughout the continent, because some of them are located outside of the United States.
It's become really important to me because working in tech, I've been in tech for 12 years now, and not once have I worked with a woman, and especially especially a woman of color. And it's very, it kind of makes you feel alone at times. Sometimes you kind of don't get jokes, or when everyone's talking about sports and things like that. So, but that's just the, the small part of it. But I just feel like women are very detail oriented, and they bring a lot to really just any role. And not having women in tech is kind of just a down, one of the downsides. Um, so I know that in my roles, I'm always the one who kind of creates the documentation and organizes everyone and all of that, because I'm just the most detail oriented. And I just feel like there is not much information out there, especially about what I do. So I wanted to get the information out there for anybody who's interested, and let them know that it's really not hard. Um, it just takes a little bit of dedication and studying, lots of studying for certifications and things like that.
Yeah, and then also,
But
even though we have HBCUs here that have started really investing in their STEM programs, this is a field you could get into with just a 1 or 2 year certificate at a community college. And we have some great programs here in Mississippi that their whole goal is to produce IT pros because they know the demand for it. So if a kid, they don't want to go to the 4 year college and pay all, have all the financial burden, they can learn these skills in a year or 2 years, get the associates, get the certificate, start working, start learning the skills. And from what you're saying, a company would rather have somebody with the experience and the skills than a degree. Now, again, we are not advocating not going to college, but in certain instances, some of these companies are looking for some of these young, hungry students that are willing to get in there and get the experience, because they want people that are trained on it rather than somebody that's, you said yourself, you went to a university and you really didn't have the skills that you thought were necessary for your career. So that is a possible pathway for some of these young people.
yeah, I definitely think now I do think having a degree or some sort of schooling past high school is important. I just don't think it's as important what you did. So like I've run across a lot of people who were history majors, journalism majors, just because they just wanted to say that they had a bachelor's or whatever. So when they're looking for jobs, they're not immediately turned down. But really what you're gaining from college is the ability to work on things and work in a team. And I think that's the main thing that I learned from college, that I can say that actually helps me. So yeah.
But in Mississippi, and I don't know about Georgia, but Mississippi does a great job with their community colleges getting certifications for people in 1 or 2 years to get them ready to get into the IT field immediately. So yeah,
Mhm.
obviously you'd have to have some type of training, but the 4 years isn't always the path, even though it is for a lot of people. But that option is getting more and more available, because like you said, these companies are getting more and more dependent on IT pros. So people have to be trained and they have to have that experience coming out for these companies to run these servers and to run these different software and hardware programs. But I do have some questions from the students here. And these are really good. This first one is Brian McMurtry, and he's a junior. And he asked, do you ever have moments where you're lost and you think you can't make any progress?
Yes, probably every week. It's because like I said, most of my job is troubleshooting, and a lot of times we'll get caught up in something for hours trying to figure out, I mean, even days,
Wow.
trying to figure out an issue. Um, and you, I mean, at the end, you could realize, oh, it's actually a bug in the system. So it's really not even my fault, but I found this out 3 days after, 3 days later after dealing with it. So what really helps me through that is remembering that every problem is probably something really small. And it's always probably something that we've overlooked, or something that just wasn't on our radar, just something that we weren't checking. And it happens a lot because there's so many, like I said, there's so many different things involved
that you have to check every aspect of the problem. So yes, so I feel lost all the time, but I'm, at this age, I'm kind of used to that, and that's part of the job. So
This is Alonzo Johnson, and he's in ninth grade. And he asked, after you didn't get accepted to your dream university, what motivated you to keep going?
At that time, I really wasn't very motivated. So I had a issue. I actually ran track in college, or in high school, sorry. And I was really focused. I really thought I wanted to go to the Olympics, actually. So I was doing like 3 practices a day in high school. And eventually I hurt my back, and um, I just didn't fall in love with it. I wasn't in love with it anymore. And my coach at the time, um, he worked at a college, and he had offered for me to follow him to this college. I think it was Howard University. And he just disappeared. And so I was kind of let down, which is probably why I just only applied for one school. I didn't know at all what I wanted to do anymore. And at the time, remember, I didn't know that I could even do IT. So I was really lost. But what motivated me after that was actually realizing that I could go to community college and just kind of test out these different classes. And that really helped me realize that I didn't want to be an interior designer. And other paths were, a lot more lucrative, and even just easier for me to grasp and get into.
Yeah, and obviously a more in-demand career that's way more portable than interior design as well.
Right.
This is Kamiria Smith. She's in ninth grade, and she asked, if you hadn't moved around a lot as a child, would you have still had your interest in STEM?
Probably, because I learned later on that my entire family on my dad's side, they're all interested. They're all into science and math, and all types of. I even have a uncle who's a contractor. He owned a contracting business. So all of my family is really like technical, and I'm pretty sure I would have picked it up. I just probably would have been maybe a little bit further along, because I wouldn't be by myself so much. I'd be able to network, and I would have had networking skills a lot easier.
And that was before the days of social media where it was easier. It was easy to network, because now y'all have y'all's Black women in STEM connection all over the dang country and continent. So that was not possible in those days.
Right.
Now, I'm sorry, I credited the previous question to the wrong person. That was J. Ashton Williams, but this is Alonzo Johnson. He is asking, what interests you most about this field, and what's the most innovative thing you have seen as you've been coming through?
So what interests me, I'm guessing in my field of tech, or my industry.
Yep.
Is I just kind of I like the idea that I could build a system from scratch, kind of like web design. Like when I brand an entire company from scratch, I like having my full imprint on on something. So building a system from scratch, and learning about what it can do, and just all the possibilities, that was really amazing to me. I don't know if you ever heard of VMware, but that system really is amazing, and that's my expertise right now.
Yeah, that's got to be cool, seeing all the new stuff come out, and you got to become the first person to be an expert on it.
Yes, you do. Or even just be willing to learn about it. You can't be closed-minded and not wanting to move move on, because you will be replaced by someone younger who's willing to do that. So I definitely think that's important.
Oh yeah, big time. Now this is Amaya Dixon, and she's in ninth grade, and she asked, "Do you think having a connection and friends and resources is good for any upcoming STEM student?"
Definitely, yes. So I think it's important because me coming up into my career, I didn't have anyone but my manager at the time, who I don't know if you read my story about my first manager. He wasn't a very nice guy, but he was the only person I could really talk to about it. And then later on, my dad got into tech too, so I could talk to them. But I just feel like it's helpful to find others that are like you, that are doing similar things, because it opens you up to more opportunities that you probably wouldn't have thought about. And it just helps you get through day to day, knowing that you're not alone. You may feel like you're alone in your area, but there's so many other people like you. But I definitely think networking helps in any field. So whatever you want to do, there's always a community there for you.
Yeah, especially when you're in your position of trying to change the narrative and change the stigma of the industry, which I know you've been very passionate about. But we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us, taking some time for us this morning. But before we go, obviously on Instagram, Black Girl in Tech, great Instagram follow. You got some really inspirational stuff on there, and that also has the link to your company. I'm saying it right, Diamant Designs. Also on there, really cool stuff you designed. I'm super impressed with that. You know, you really have a talent for that on top of your software and hardware skills. So that's a great side hustle you have going on. So I encourage everybody to follow her on Instagram. That's seeing it now and seeing it later. But before we go, obviously you're very passionate about getting more and more Black kids involved in STEM, and especially more women. And everybody that's watching with me now is a young Black student in America. And a lot of the ones that are going to see this later are, and a lot of young ladies are going to see this later. So what can you say to these young Black kids in America that were just like you were a few years ago, and these girls that are seeing this? What can they do when they're going to face the same obstacles you faced to be as successful as you are in a great field?
I would just say have a plan. Do a lot of research to know where you even want to start, and have a plan, and find communities that are into the same thing. And now in social media time, there's literally a community for any little thing that you're interested in. So I think that is probably the best thing. And even find a mentor. I myself have 2 or 3 mentors, or mentees, sorry, that I help out, try to get them into tech and working on their resume and things like that. So finding a mentor, and even shadowing to even get more experience. So all of that is very important.
Yeah, the opportunities are there. I mean, more now than they ever were. But you guys are doing, first of all, you're doing some great work, and your community that I've come in contact with that's been doing this for us in our class is just amazing. You know, all the obstacles you all have faced and then overcoming to become successful women and successful in the STEM field is really, really impressive. So just keep doing what you're doing. And again, thank you so much for taking some time for us today. I know you're really busy. But again, Black Girl in Tech on Instagram. Great Instagram follow. Make sure you follow her, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you.
Later.
Have a good day.
Bye.